Let me tell you a story.
Hi, my name is Bernard, and you are watching a series of videos about my great-great-grandfather, James the Convict. In episode 1, we covered the social, political and economic situation in England from 1830 to 1836, the year that James was arrested. We're now going to talk about the geography of England, specifically as it relates to James in the year 1836. We'll answer questions like, where was James born? What were the local surrounding towns and villages like? What places did he travel to? I'll do my best to describe these places as they were in 1836. Let's get into it. England was divided into 39 counties. The county of Essex was situated immediately northeast of London along the Thames estuary in the North Sea, and was a varied landscape of fertile agricultural lowlands, martial coastal fringes, and rapidly expanding industrial and residential districts. The western parishes closest to Greater London, such as West Ham, Walthamstow and Barking, were already experiencing explosive population growth and early industrialisation. The great majority of the county, however, was distinctly rural. Rich corn-growing farmland on the heavier clay soils, lighter soils producing barley and turnips, extensive sheep pastures on the marshes, and the oyster fisheries of the Blackwater and Colne estuaries providing famous native oysters. Essex employed a large number of labourers whose wages were low and whose conditions were highlighted in the Captain Swing riots and the growing clamour against the New Poor Law, both discussed in episode 1. People in Essex were politically very conservative, strongly Church of England, and were dominated by a powerful landed gentry and aristocracy, the Petre, Mildmay, Weston and Round families among others. The administrative capital of Essex was Chelmsford, where the county jail, the Shire Hall and the Court of Sessions were held. Colchester was the county town and a respectable borough with textile and engineering works. Maldon, Harwich and the smaller ports handled coastal shipping and some foreign trade. Essex in 1836 stood on the cusp of dramatic change as London's tentacles reached ever further into its fields and villages. Now let's talk about a place central to the early life of James, Braintree. Braintree was a medium-sized market town and parish within the northern part of Essex. It was situated about 60 kilometres northeast of London. There was a public market every Saturday in the town centre which drew many people from nearby parishes. These markets made Braintree an important economic and commercial hub in the district. They fostered trade, social interaction and local governance. Farmers, craftsmen and merchants from the surrounding countryside gathered to buy and sell goods such as produce, livestock, cloth and household wares. No doubt James and his family attended these markets on many occasions. Braintree was positioned as a key midway point on the major thoroughfare connecting London to the counties of Suffolk and Norfolk. The town occupied a gentle, elevated landscape typical of the undulating terrain in northern Essex, which featured low hills and broad river valleys rather than dramatic elevations. The town itself was situated on a modest hill amidst the gently sloping surrounding countryside. There was a prominent mound at the town centre where the parish church of St Michael stood. Irregular narrow streets winding around the hill's contours reflected organic medieval growth rather than a planned layout. We're focusing on Braintree because this is where James the Convict was born. There were 4 parishes of interest within the Braintree district in 1836. Braintree parish itself, population about 3,500. Bocking parish, population about 3,000, about half an hour's walk from Braintree. Because of their close proximity, by the way, Braintree and Bocking were often mentioned together. Shalford, a small village of 300 people, about an hour's walk from Bocking. Bardfield Sailing, a small village of 200 people, about an hour's walk from Shalford, all within, say, 5 or 6 kilometres of each other. Why are these places important? Well, James was christened at the St Mary the Virgin Church at Bocking in 1817. James's parents, John and Mary, were married at St Michael's Church, Braintree, in 1815. John's occupation at the time was a labourer. In June of 1836, when James was 19 years old, James allegedly purchased 14 kilograms of lead from a stranger in Shalford. James then travelled to Braintree and sold the lead for 3 shillings to a salesman, Robert Spice, an ironmonger. 3 shillings was about a day's wage. Ironmongers, by the way, were similar to our Bunnings. In actual fact, this lead belonged to a farmer in Shalford by the name of Henry Byatt. Someone had stolen the lead from the roof of his hop kiln, used for drying hops. You can't dry hops with a leaky roof. The lead in question was confirmed to have belonged to Henry Byatt, as the marks were still on it. The lead was traced back to James, and he was arrested in July of 1836. At the end of July, James attended a petty sessions court in Braintree, more than likely held at the White Hart Inn. He was committed to stand trial at Chelmsford, the administrative capital of Essex, about 20 kilometres to the south. It was common practice to use inns as courthouses. The White Hart is still there today. The White Hart Hotel would be a great place to have a beer and think about how even small decisions of a single distant ancestor can mean the difference between you existing exactly as you are today and not existing at all. The village of Bardfield Sailing was where James's parents were registered in the 1841 census. Hope you enjoyed this episode of the James the Convict series. Please let me know if you have any suggestions in the comment section below. See you in the next one.